Well, that was a vintage Christmas. A marvellous time. In recent weeks, I've got 120 cards, I think. Christmas cards. These are the dozen I want to keep because they're so interesting. So I'll show some of them to you, or perhaps all of them, because they are really clever ideas and lovely designs. The first one took my breath away. It only arrived quite recently too. It's from a good friend, Mark Setteducati, who lives in New York, just outside New York now, and he's done something which he's developed over several years. He's taken to do it. Incidentally, that, just as a silly pun, is Mark Setteducati. That's the full mark, the full face, and in here we've got half a mark, or half a mark. Anyway, that's a full mark. But this is what he sent me, and this is the fun bit, which is extraordinary. This type of thing is fairly well known amongst mathematical circles and in sort of recreational mathematics. It's called a magic square, and when you add those numbers up, you'll have to have a little calculator to do it. It comes to 176. But every way you do it comes to the same amount. The next line, the next line, the next line, all 176, the column, all 176, diagonal column, diagonals, that little group of 4 in the middle, the 4 corners. Every time you add up 4 numbers, it comes to the same total. Astonishing. Now, there's something really magical about this. It's made with these rather clunky, chunky type digits, which I don't like very much, but I'm beginning to like them better because of this effect. They're used in all the displays. All electronic displays have these chunky chips. This one, which is a magic square, also works when it's upside down. The numbers change. Well, most of them, 11 stays the same, but 25, 52, those all change. And yet it comes to the same totals. Everywhere is 176. And even more amazing, it works in a mirror, would you believe? Mirror writing? Yes, mirror writing, would you believe? We've got a mirror at hand, fortunately, here, so I'll set it up, and I'll hold the bottom edge so you can see the rest of the effect. And this is pointing with that way, yes, like that. And if I get this tilted well down like that, we might be able to get a picture of it. And each of those lines, even though they're in mirror writing, gets to the same total of 176. And then, of course, as you can imagine, that also does the same thing. So turned around and upside down also makes a total, each one, all 24 of them, 176. Amazing. I don't think that's ever been done before. And he says it's probably unique. He's talked to mathematician friends to those particular numbers. So that's a really superb card, which I'm going to be showing to a lot of people over this next year, because it's such a wonderful effect. A nice card he made too. So what a piece, and thank you very much. Full marks for that, Mark. Now, we've got, here's a very, just to start with a gentle way, because I get better as we go through this. As my cousin who lives in Birmingham sent this charming picture of deer, and I discovered that I had no less than about 10 cards featuring deer this time. This is another one which a niece of mine sent. Deer there and deer there, that's all right. So yes, I just like them enough, want to keep them. And then there's a much cleverer one here, which a friend of mine who's been in business, in toy business for many years, sent me, which unfolds, and you clip the 2 pieces together, and you set it up like this. And look at this, isn't that charming? It's a square of deer, as if they're in the forest, all on their 2 legs, not 4 legs, dancing away. That's astonishing. And it sits very, very nicely on my mantelpiece. A very, very charming sight for a holiday or Christmas card. So I'm very, very pleased to get that one. Now we get some more clever stuff, especially, oh, there's one more pop-up thing before I come to the opticals. This is a nice, one from America. One of our fans sent it to me. It's one of the ones which opens up like that, which is quite sweet. But they made it a bit cleverer than that, because you don't use a paperclip, which I usually use. You don't put glue there. There's Velcro, and all you got to do is touch it, and it stays. And then the other side, the same thing. Touch it, and it stays. And instantly, you've got an ice cream sundae. Look at that. Cheers. Have a sip or something. And look at it as I turn it round. Very nicely made, and it packs flat again, but superb bit of paper engineering, that. And I particularly like those little things which unclip, which are Velcro pieces. Very, very nice little idea. That folds flat, and it came to the post like that, flat. So brilliant one, that. Now, a lot of these are opticals, because that's one of my favourite subjects, is opticals. This is a particularly nice one from a lady in Bristol University who I've known for many years. It's the old, who was it who produced this? It was, that's right, Bella Jules in 1973 produced this. When you get big blocks of colour and it's very close to you, you can't see much of what's going on there. It's just too close. it's not visible. But when you pull it away, suddenly comes to the point where you see what's going on. It's actually, can you make out it's a dachshund, I think it is. They show the inside of what you're supposed to see, which is that thing there. But it's a lot more visible there as a dachshund or a Dalmatian or one of those 101 Dalmatians than when it's very close and it's almost invisible. And then she takes you a bit further because she points out the first one they produced actually was of Abraham Lincoln, this one here, which when it's very close to you looks like some nonsense, which is hard to make out. When it's pulled away from you, it becomes a lot more like Abe himself. There we are, when it's full back like that. And there's another effect which I didn't realise, and that is Shakespeare, where she says as well as pulling back, all you need to do is diminish it in size and reduce it in size, and when it gets smaller, your brain can interpret it as being Shakespeare, whereas the first picture you see at the top is close to, is almost meaningless. It's just blobs, squares of colour. But from a distance away, it becomes very clear. And that's a nice way of introducing you to this technology of taking things, what I call distant viewing, where you have to look at it from a distance, and then it works for you. Although this one shows you another way of doing it, which is diminishing it in size. That's a good one. Patrick Hughes, I've known for many years. He makes this wonderful reverse perspective, he calls it, which is it's just a postcard, but you have to squeeze it up in different ways like that. Put it on the table like this. And it's a whole series of huge playing cards, which when I turn it, will start to move. I think I want it upside down. Let's do the other way up. There we are. If we go this far, look particularly at this bit here, which is very strong. When I move it, move this way and then move this way, and they seem to become alive and take off and go the different way to which you're viewing, which is very surprising. And to do that is such a delightful thing. He sent me perhaps 2 or 3 of these, and I've had a lot of fun showing them to people over the years I've known them. And it's a flat card initially, but it's something magical there. This is a very charming little one, coming out of the opticals again. A friend of mine, Des Kay, who does recycling, made it for me, and it's one of those little paper umbrellas which you have in cocktail sticks. But he's done a message all around outside. Here's hoping your Christmas is a shade better than this year, meaning than last year, and then the K's, he's Des K. But that's a very, very charming way of presenting a Christmas greeting, I think, which I've never seen before, and that's just him being a little inventive, and it's packed up like that. What could be easier? Woo! Now here's a slightly tricky one, but it's done by Richard Robinson, who runs the science festivals down in Brighton, and he sent me a Christmas card with a Christmas tree over here. But there's also actually a little tiny creature there, which is supposed to be the tree fairy that sits on top of the Christmas tree. And she's not, she's detached, or she's arriving through the air, or she's taken off, But she says to make her appear on the top of the tree, there's 2 things you can do. One is to cross your eyes, and she'll move, and the Christmas tree will move together, or get your eyes to go parallel, which I do when I'm looking at autostereograms. And the idea is to try and get these 2 together so the little red fairy is sitting on top of the Christmas tree. It does work, but it takes a bit of practice to do it, because your eyes got to be crossed to a particular place where it joins up. But interesting enough, in this card, which he gave on the back, he gave me instructions about a second effect, which I've known for years and years, and I thought that's a nice thing to put the 2 together. It's called the blind spot at the back of the retina, and to do that, you have to hold this card. I'll hold it up to my face like this, and at any distance like that, I'm aware all the time that there's 2 separated things, the Christmas card, the Christmas tree, and the fairy. But at a certain position, about 6 inches, as you're looking at the top of the tree, the fairy suddenly disappears, because the actual picture of the fairy on the retina is hit the blind spot where all the nerves are, and there's nothing to detect the actual fairy being there. So you need to still your picture on TV and get your face very close to it, and with any luck you might be able to get the effect. As you're drawing close, you're aware, as you're concentrating on this, out of the corner of your eye, this little creature suddenly vanishes. A very clever little way of doing it, and to, I think, do the 2 together as a single card is a very, very nice idea, Richards. So a goodie, I couldn't keep that one. And the last 3, this is an extraordinary one, sent by Brett Coonan, who's a friend who does puzzles galore in America. It's full of a story of what you call Anticlaw, he calls it. But the fun of it is this page here, which is completely blank. So what's going to happen? Well, for this we need to darken the place, because I'm going to have to show you this thing here, which is something he includes. There's a little torch, and it's a UV torch. That's UV lighting. So all here, which looks completely blank and rather boring, is actually full of wonderful, wonderful detail. I'll start on this side, where even though it's all got print in it, look what comes up when I squeeze it. Can you see the stars suddenly appearing? Stars, 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 stars. Even better is here. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that detail there. How on earth did he get that on that? It's all UV writing, all the way down to Santa Claus, and finally Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. All from a blank card, because it's UV only, and a very, very nice thing to get. So that was a brilliant card. It caught me out because I hadn't looked at it, I hadn't spotted there was this thing with it. I just saw a blank and wondered what was up. But I think with this in, you'll suddenly realise the magic, and it's there and you're up and about. The second to last card is one from a friend of mine who used to run a wonderful shop in London that sold chaos and fractals and all that in the very early days. And what's particularly interesting is he sent me a What's-It, which I must show you as well. This is typically the sort of artwork he had in the early days when he's running his stand, and they were demonstrating fractals and getting computers to generate these extraordinary pictures of things which diminished smaller and smaller but still kept the same pattern. It was a very, very interesting effect. So I was very pleased to receive that from him. But look at this, he enclosed this little picture of something I haven't seen before. And he said to me, "Okay, Tim, what's it? What's it for?" The very like clogs you wear perhaps in Holland, or those shoes with their clunky feet, but each of these has got 4 little legs underneath it, or 4 horseshoes, or 4 feet something there, which is bizarre. My feeling is that if you walked on the sand, especially wet sand, or on some pavement when it's been wet and there's dry bits, your footprint would look very peculiar, because you'd have sets of 4 little prints at the sort of one pace distance, about a 3 foot in between each one. But how you come, and what's the point of doing that? I'm not really quite too sure. He's left it as an open thing for me to solve during the year and see if I can work out. If anyone of you's ever seen a shoe like that, or a pair of shoes, I'd love to know more about it, because I'm baffled. The last one is from a lovely American fan of ours who's come online, Kevin. And this is a marvellous card. Look at this. I've got to keep this for a long, long time. It's a big pop-up card, and it's a big, big treat to open. Oh my! Look at that. A man of war or something. Slowly turn it round, and it's brought beautifully into view just by opening it. The paper engineering into that is really quite delightful. I particularly like the idea of having waves all around it to hide the fact that you've got to do those little sort of cross-hatcheted bits of thing in the actual structure of the hull, which immediately puts holes into it, which you don't really want to see, little square holes. And he covers up rather nicely by putting waves around it, so you can't see that. But isn't that magnificent? And it closes up just oof, like that. It opens up just like that, and you sit back and say, wow, that is some design. So, vintage Christmas cards for a vintage year. Looking forward to the next one.